Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds, or myself, Matt, my co-host, Mark,
Hello.
and Tyler.
Hello.
Provide a completely unprofessional. Oh, wait, no, Tyler's not here today. Today we have a special guest, the one and only Party Clardy.
Yeah! God, that's the lamest inside joke ever. No one's going to get it because it's not a joke on this thing so far.
That's who you are. It's not a
Basically,
joke,
my students called me Party Clardy for a little bit. And then
but it's not a joke. It's just your
It's
name.
just true. Yeah, that's
This is
my,
real life.
I go
Yeah.
to parties and I just read, and I'm Party Clardy.
Yeah.
But here at Film Frauds, we provide a completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. But today, we finally have a new movie to talk about on Netflix. Mark, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about David Fincher's Mank, his first film in 6 years, I believe, since Gone Girl.
Yeah.
This film is about Joseph Mankiewicz, the screenwriter for Citizen Kane, and the whole story is him getting into this contract with Orson Welles to write the story. And it stars Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried, Charles Dance.
It's Herman Mankiewicz.
Herman. Why did I say Joseph?
I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. My God.
I'm thinking of a different whatever. Herman Mankiewicz.
I thought I had a stroke.
Yeah, I did my research.
Yeah.
He's Mank. Okay, Mank is the main character, and so it takes place 1940s. There's flashback scenes, so it's like 1930s to 1940, and so that's what we're talking about today. It just came out on Netflix, and we're here to give you our great reviews of this. So I'll go first.
You're such a salesman.
I'm a good salesman. Ready? All right. So my review is gonna be a little biased because not very objective, because there are things I like about this movie that involve things that I've been reading and watching the past year. So this movie, I went in completely blind. I just knew Herman Mankiewicz, screenwriter, Citizen Kane. That's it. Didn't see any trailers or any images, and I was sort of caught off guard as to how political this film was. And the politics of old Hollywood. And one of the main things I liked about this is the involvement of Upton Sinclair, who's like a guy I'm just absolutely fascinated with, because he wrote like these books like Oil and The Jungle. He wrote the book that There Will Be Blood is based on. I had no idea he ran for, California state governor. But and then there's references to Mank makes references to like Don Quixote and there's another reference that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. I'm looking at my notes here. Anyways, overall, I actually had kind of a blast with this film. It took me about 30 minutes to get into it.
Yeah.
It took me about 30 minutes to get in. Not gonna lie. Like after 25 minutes in, I was like, wow, I'm really bored. What is David Fincher doing? But as time went on, I really got into it. And so I have a gist of what your guys' opinions are, and I want to talk about David Fincher and his level of filmmaking for this movie. I feel like he was so committed to his father's script because his dad, Jack Fincher, wrote the script for this film back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so this definitely didn't feel totally like a Fincher film to me. It definitely felt a lot different. And I think it's because like he was just so subservient to his dad's vision. And it felt like it really showed. So let's talk about it as a David Fincher film first, because I know, Matt, you are a big David Fincher film.
Yeah, he's probably he might be my favorite filmmaker. I don't really have like a favorite filmmaker, but he's one of the first things that comes to my mind. I pretty much love everything he's done. I mean, we did the Girl Drunk Tattoo review a couple months ago, and I had nothing but praise for it. And I love Seven, I love Zodiac, I really like Gone Girl, Social Network is great, all of them are great. And this movie was disappointing to me. Like what you said, Mark, you kind of put it perfectly, that it doesn't feel like a Fincher movie. But even from like a camera movement style, from a directorial style, from like a writing style, it doesn't feel like a Fincher movie. And I also went in not knowing anything about the movie other than, Mank is the guy who wrote Citizen Kane. I purposely avoided every trailer for it because, I love David Fincher and I was already sold on it. There were like clashing tones to this movie that kind of bothered me. And I think like the lack of like deep side characters also hindered this movie a lot for me. I think Gary Oldman's great as Mank, but this movie feels like an early Fincher movie as opposed to like an experienced Fincher movie to me. And I was a little disappointed. Tyler, what did you think about it?
So you guys have basically kind of hit the nail on the head. I think this is one of the first times we've all probably collectively seen a movie where none of us watched the trailer beforehand. Like I really saw that one image that kind of popped up for like Entertainment Weekly where you saw Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried kind of like together. It's like, cool, a David Fincher movie. Like Matt said, he's one of the best, if not maybe the best working director today, arguably up there. You're right. When you think of best modern directors, you think of David Fincher. And this is his worst movie. I want to put a little asterisk on that because I haven't gotten a chance to see Panic Room, but of everything else I've seen, so that's what 10 of his total movies, and that's 2 seasons of Mindhunter. It's the worst thing he's done. David Fincher to me does not strike me as someone who creates love letters to old Hollywood, or not just like love letters to old Hollywood, but someone who is interested in kind of like film history. And I've always associated him with like elevating these very decently written like crime dramas to be, these things of
Like pulpy crime dramas into being something more like depthful.
Pulpy is probably the best word, and you're right. He's someone whose movies are valued on a rewatch. And what I really gleaned from kind of like this movie is I don't know how much should be gained from rewatching this movie. This is a very shallow kind of experience.
Well, I'd actually, it's funny because I know, Tyler, you're the guy who like you grade on rewatchability.
Yeah, that's a big component for me.
When I finished this, I actually wanted to rewatch it, just because I wasn't, this sort of was like a history lesson for me because I didn't know any of this, and I was really invested. I was like, oh, is this really what happened? What's going on here? But I wanted to, there's a lot of references at the beginning of the film that I wasn't picking up on, and then by the end, I was like, okay, I think I need to go back and maybe with this new wealth of information that I've collected over the film, I can go back and sort of maybe understand it better. So I do want to watch it again. So maybe that's the reason why I'm sort of a little higher up. But yes,
so
continue.
This movie basically feels like this movie has an audience, and I am very aware that I want to clarify that I am not that interested in film history. I like analyzing movies like we do here, and I like having history to contextualize what I'm watching, but I'm not really too intrigued in like 1930s, 1940s, kind of like that golden era of Hollywood. If there was any time period I would have been very like intrigued in, it's like the 70s cocaine-filled era, where everyone was just high off their mind and creating just like masterful
Best movies ever.
Yeah, like the best movies ever. I'm very interested in that kind of time period. I'm not really that motivated to learn about the creation of like our modern Hollywood. Like Citizen Kane is a landmark film, and they try to do the best to kind of like capture the process of that in a sense. But it really, like, I'm not the audience for this kind of thing, and that should really be clarified. And if you are, and that's why, like, I was convinced that you were going to really love this movie, Mark, because this is your kind of like type of movie. This like exploration of like the most classic movies ever made and who's made them, and this constant references to how like old Hollywood worked, and like you said, the politics behind it. Right up your alley. Not for me. It really like it's just not my type of thing. And I don't know like what Matt thought. Like I don't know if you were interested in that or you just had issues with the movie.
I'm okay with like the process of filmmaking. I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's like my favorite Tarantino movie of like the past 15 years.
Yeah.
And that's very much about, it's very much like a love letter to Hollywood, but also, kind of showing like an end of an era sort of thing. And I like a movie called One Cut of the Undead came out 2 years ago, which I just watched this year, and I think that's really great as well. My problems with this movie mostly come with the fact that when you think of a Fincher movie, you think of like these like depthful character studies and like sort of like psychological dramas, and there's like hints of that in this movie, but it just doesn't contrast well. Like there'll be like one scene where Mank is like drinking and writing, and it's like supposed to be kind of like what's it called, like not existential, but like hypnotic in a way. And then like the following scene is like the producer guy walking down the hallway going like, oh, get the papers here, the movie comes from the brain or the heart, and it's like playing like that like uppity like drum music while he's walking, and it's like it feels like it'd be in a different movie. And it seems like David Fincher and his father have very contrasting filmmaking and script writing standpoints, and they just don't mesh well together, in my opinion. Here,
Yeah. One thing that I've been sort of thinking about since I watched the film, and I think Tyler, you touched on this in your review on Letterboxd, is
what about my review?
well, I think you mentioned it as well.
Mine was
Tyler,
good, though,
Tyler had a
right?
good review. I like Tyler's review.
That's right. What's up?
It's the nonlinear structure of the film, which I understand because that's what makes Citizen Kane so original. I understand maybe why Fincher chose to do that, or maybe why Jack Fincher chose to do that, but I don't know if it really did anything for me. It didn't really
I
seem.
feel like I feel like it was more of a hindrance than anything.
Yeah. I mean, it was cool seeing it would be like interior Hollywood
That stuff was cool,
studios,
like the script
1930s.
writing that entered the scene. That was cool, but
Yeah.
I kind of wanted this movie just to be like, like an example, like would be like Mank just locked in his room, just like trying to get the stupid script done, and like you can have like his influences that he sees on the outside, like influencing his writing in Citizen Kane. But I don't know. I feel like this movie would have been better if it was just more contained and just focused more on Mank himself. You know,
the alcoholic writer.
Yeah,
that's right up your alley. I don't know. It's like one of those things. Like the non-linear storytelling is, again, like I said, it's kind of. It's used to, I feel like, just to try to emulate the style of Citizen Kane, to help, take that kind of how Citizen Kane basically built the character of, oh my God, I'm blanking.
Charles Foster Kane.
Thank you, of Charles Foster Kane, and how it used that kind of like masterfully to build us an understanding of who this like man is. And it works in that capacity, not only because it was kind of a landmark achievement at the time, but also because that movie is like really well written. And there's wonderful kind of like set pieces, and there's a wonderful character study there, kind of like the point Matt was touching on. And this one, I don't see the character depth that I wanted in any capacity, because all of it builds up to kind of makes slight spoilers, I guess. Its history doesn't really kind of like, I understand this movie might not be like the most historically
spoilers
accurate.
from here on out.
Spoilers from here on out. But when you get that moment at the end where Mank kind of like is like, I want credit for Citizen Kane. This is the best thing I've ever written. It's just like, I don't know if we ever got that nice kind of like character arc from like broken, tortured artist to like.
He spent so little time writing in this movie that you don't feel it.
It doesn't feel like it's earned any.
I agree.
Because someone comes, he's like, Mank's the best thing you've ever, or not Mank, Citizen Kane's the best thing you've ever written, and he's like, ooh. And then it just kind of like, he's like, yeah, it is. And then that's the end of the movie. And you're like, I don't, like, there's a great, I don't want to compare it to like The Social Network, but I mean, I feel like it's fair because it's another.
Kind of have to. I mean,
you kind of have to, because The Social Network might be my favorite Fincher movie. I got to rewatch like Seven and Gone Girl and a couple of things like that. But you get that wonderful kind of moment at the end of The Social Network where Mark Zuckerberg is like sitting there, like refreshing Facebook to get the friend request, like acceptance from the girl he loves. And it's this entire buildup of a movie for just that one human moment.
Yeah, and it has like the great, like he's the youngest billionaire ever. Yeah, he's just like pathetically refreshing his Facebook page. And it's so brilliant. There's no like, you don't get that moment here.
No, and the thing is like you go on this journey with Mank to get to that point of like self-actualization and self-confidence, and he's like, and it's just like it felt weightless to me, and it's a shame because Gary Oldman is really great in this movie. Like it might not be his best performance ever, but it's definitely up there. He commits fully to this role. It's great.
Yeah, on the topic of Gary Oldman, I just like to point out that Herman Mankiewicz and Marion Foster, I think Marion Foster, who the actress played by Amanda Seyfried.
Yep,
they're supposed to be the same age.
What?
They're the same age. Yeah, in real life they're the same age.
What?
So
Gary Oldman looks like her dad.
Yeah. No,
yeah. No, they're
Marion Davies. Marion
Davies. Yes. So, why did I say Foster? Oh, I know why. I'll get that into a second. So yeah, that kind of threw me off. I mean, Gary Oldman's a phenomenal actor. He was great in this. But maybe if it was a younger actor, maybe he would have had us in more. I don't know. It just he sort of like felt disconnected just because of his age. Does that make sense?
I didn't know how old he was writing the movie, so it didn't really bother me. Like personally, but this is like a random note. But Tyler, do you remember The Hitman's Bodyguard? a terrible movie.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember how
movie.
he was like legitimately amazing in that horrible movie? He played the
He's like
bad guy.
he's the bad guy and he's just hamming it up and he's having fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's like legitimately good in it.
Yeah.
In that awful horrible movie with Ryan Gosling. No, I mean Ryan Reynolds.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, he's such a good actor, and it's like you think like finally David Fincher and Gary Oldman are working together.
Yeah.
You think like it's gonna be magic, but it doesn't quite
Just-
reach.
It's one of those things like, again, none of us watched a trailer for this, so there are a few things like that really stood out to this movie, and I was curious. Mark might have noticed this a little bit more, but they do their best, at least David Fincher does, to recreate like how a movie from the 1930s and 40s would sound. It's not a detractor for the movie for me, but it has that like extra kind of like echo kind of thing where it sounds a little bit more distant and a little bit more grainy.
You like the audio in this movie? You like the audio in this?
Yeah, I didn't like the audio, so this is immediately an F. Boo, it sucks. No, I actually kind of dug that part. I'm not I'm not the biggest fan of movies from the 1930s and 40s. Mainly, I just haven't dived too much into them. But I had to respect Fincher's like dedication to mirroring something from that time period and how something would have looked and how it would have been kind of like framed and shot. And I was really, really impressed with that. And on a technical aspect, this movie's great. We're kind of like we're like a spree of movies that are technically really great but narratively kind of defunct, which is really interesting.
What do you mean? What other movies have been like that?
Dunkirk and what was the one after that? Cold War for me.
Hackers.
For you, yeah.
Hackers and Black Hat Hacker Man, Hot Hacker Man, yeah.
Well, I mean, Mark, that's implying that there was something redeemable about hackers.
Yeah.
which there wasn't.
I was gonna say because he was gonna make a claim that it was.
Yeah.
But on the topic of just like the technical aspects of the film, or not exactly technical, but the stylistic choices, these cigarette burns that you see.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that.
Yeah.
12,
in the
12
corner,
times
yeah.
maybe 11, 10, 12.
Yep.
Wasn't feeling that. I really wasn't.
Oh, really? I like that.
Whoa. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah,
I wasn't really into it.
This is baffling because I expected this movie to be like your favorite movie of the year. Like I was really watching it, I'm like, Mark is gonna.
It's one of the best of the year. That's no question.
Oh damn! Oh, that's bold. No,
I
I don't
think
know.
Like,
There's not a big pool to choose from.
That's not true.
You haven't seen
Bloodshot.
Borat 2. Part 2
Yeah.
is like my favorite movie of the year. And I'm not even being like ironic when I say it.
Oh my god.
Wait, you're telling me your favorite movie of the year is not The Old Guard?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, never mind. Old Guard is the best movie
Yeah,
I've ever
right.
seen in my life.
Yeah, we got you there. No,
Yeah,
I don't know.
hypocrite.
Like, Mark, I genuinely was watching this and was like, man, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. But I was like, Mark's gonna love this. I knew
Yeah.
Matt wasn't the biggest fan already of it because he's like, it's fine. was
I had
like,
to watch
okay.
this in 2 parts actually.
Really?
I paused it on Friday night. I still had 45 minutes left, and I just had no desire to finish it in that moment. So I watched it. I just finished it last night.
You must have
which
been
is not
so
like a good
bummed.
testament. What?
You must have been so bummed.
I was, because I mean, I love Fincher movies, man. Like as the Girl that I got to review proved, like I think he is like my favorite filmmaker. And just watching this, I was waiting for it to get to that next level. It never did for me. But a lot of people have given this 5-star reviews, so people do really like it. I think it has better reviews than The Girl in Shack Tattoo, so there's that much.
I just want to compare this off of Letterboxd. Letterboxd is kind of like a very like nice amalgamation of stuff sometimes, but has a 3.7 out of 5. And just to compare, the Social Network has a 3.9, which is
Wow.
So
What does The Girl in Shack Tattoo have?
I think it's a little bit lower. Let me check with that. But it's like, again, while I'm checking this, this movie's kind of getting a lot of praise. It has a high kind of Rotten Tomatoes score, 3.8. It has a high Rotten Tomatoes
So it
score.
actually is higher than.
Yeah, it's
Mank.
higher than Mank. So there's a little consensus that like Mank is good in some capacity. And I don't know. I really struggle with this movie. Not only is it just not my type of movie, I just found it to be very like poorly paced. I found it to be like horribly dull with kind of like uninteresting characters outside of Mank. Because Mank is like a very interesting figure.
I want to
in
get
this
into the
movie.
characters after this. Yeah.
You want to get to the characters?
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you though, Matt. Outside of Mank, nothing. Like I did not gravitate to anyone in any capacity. Like Lily Collins is giving a really good performance, but I didn't like.
Yeah.
It's just so like nothing for me here. Matt,
I
what
guess
do you
like
think?
his wife was okay. She's a good like person for Mank to talk to. I don't know, but I'm gonna say that there are scenes in this movie where he's talking to these like producer guys, and I could not tell if I'd seen this character before or not.
Mhm.
I'm just watching this movie and he's like talking to some guy. He like leaves the funeral and some guy comes behind him. He's like, "Hey, Mank," and I'm like, "Who is this person? Like, what relevance does he have to this plot?"
Yep.
And then we're full of spoilers now, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. So when that guy has the gun, he's gonna shoot himself because he has Parkinson's or whatever.
Yep.
And like I'm like, who is this person? Like I was like, has this person been in the movie yet? I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
And like it's supposed to be this huge dramatic scene, and I was like, I do not know anything that's going on right now. I do not care at all. And this is like the climactic scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you who that was because it took me a second to figure out.
Who was it?
Who is it?
He was the guy who directed all those propaganda films against Upton Sinclair, and then he realized, my films basically made him lose the race.
Because he
Yeah.
supported Upton Sinclair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched this movie and then had to read the plot summary of it again to remember like what happened in it. That's how like I am not again. I don't often like I'm pretty lenient when it comes to movies. Clearly based on my love of like Black Hat. And I know we keep going to Black. I'm clearly very lenient. And if I like and this should have been like the best movie of the year. On paper, David Fincher creating a kind of
I know you think this would be like already the best movie of the 2020s.
Yeah, it's
based on who's in it.
It's baffling. A David Fincher movie starring Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried, who's a good actress, Lily Collins, who's a good actress, and a whole like cavalcade of just like solid supporting actors and actresses in a movie about 1930s and 40s Hollywood about the creation of Citizen Kane. It's on paper like a can't miss movie. You can't beat this kind of stuff, but still somehow Fincher did not there's nothing here that resonates with me as a Fincher movie. And I feel like that's a big mistake.
Yeah. This is what I was thinking about because as we talked earlier, like this doesn't feel like a Fincher film. I think he was just so loyal to his father's script. Like his father passed away in 2003 and I think he was just trying to like honor his, legacy, I guess. There's only one screenplay credit, and that's Jack Fincher. So, like, clearly David Fincher wasn't really, touching up the script at all. Well, technically he did. I read on Wiki that the producer, Eric Roth, had polished the script prior to filming because David Fincher said that early drafts felt too anti-Orson Welles. So I want to quickly sort of pivot into the history of this because I wasn't sure how true this was because, like, I'm a guy who loves Orson Welles. I think he's one of the coolest dudes who ever lived.
Go crazy.
I was like,
go off.
Oh crap, was he a piece of shit? What's going on here?
Yep.
And so the script is based off a claim made by Pauline Kael in her 1971 New Yorker article, and the article was called "Raising Cain." And in the article, she claims that Orson Welles did not deserve a screenwriting credit for Citizen Kane. Because if you watch the film, it's Herman Mankiewicz, Orson Welles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Her argument was discredited by several film scholars over the years. So she makes, her whole argument is, based on the fact that Herman was in the desert. He wrote the whole script by himself. Welles had no part in it. But there's actually contradictory evidence that Welles was making his own script and Mankiewicz was making his own script, and it was titled The American. That was the name of the film. And then they came together, and Orson Welles was like, I like this from your script, and I like this from mine. And then he sort of made this amalgamation, and then that's the script we see. So this film is based on this New Yorker article saying that Welles did not deserve a screenwriting credit. So, there's a little bit of fabrication going on here with the story. It wasn't exactly as we see it. There's a lot of nuance here, which clearly Jack Fincher didn't really pick up on.
I don't care about changing history in any capacity. I think I felt
I read the history book. So
I've read the one history book that's somewhere in this mess. I don't care about changing history if what you change is slightly more interesting than probably what happened. I don't think it works in something like the Trial of Chicago 7 at the end where he reads the list of Thomas Hayden. Order. When in actuality he gave this apparently moving and monumental speech, but instead they fucking Aaron Sorkin changed it to give his schmaltzy emotional bullshit at the end of all of his movies that I
That's how you really feel.
I can go off.
Let it all out.
Man, I don't know. I didn't know the history of this movie. It didn't really impact me in any regards. but what we're presented with is still an underdeveloped resolution. And
Yeah.
regardless of ending, it doesn't change the fact that the ending isn't deserved, or at least I felt like it wasn't deserved. The ending didn't feel like it was. It didn't. The movie's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and 30 minutes of this movie could have been cut off. Just want to throw that out there. I think like easily. It's like there's a point where there's 22 minutes left of the movie, and I like audibly groaned. I was like, "Fuck!" And I wanted to go to bed. It was like 11:15. I was like, "I'm done with this movie." And then I kind of like think I like bared through it with like what's it called, like clenched fist or whatever. I don't know. Like, what do you guys think of the pacing of this movie? Because I thought that was horrendous.
Uh, I definitely was not a total. I wasn't really a big fan of the pacing. I really felt it at times. The way I felt about this film is sort of how I felt about the 2015 Steve Jobs film, where I think it's like a bunch of, or like a small handful of like really great scenes, and everything in between I really didn't care for. But the scenes that I liked, I really liked. So like when you get those like flashbacks back to like the house in the desert, and it's like him writing, you just expect that to be probably one of the more interesting parts of the film. I was like totally out of it. And like the whole Lily Collins character, like when it found out, everyone finds out that her husband was, he ended up being safe after his ship had sunk. I was like, what? Why should I care about this?
I don't remember that happening at all.
Yeah, she gets a letter. She's like, Mank, he's okay, he's fine. And I'm like, why do we need to see this? What does this have to do with anything?
Yeah.
So the pacing, felt it. I don't know about you, Matt.
It's again like with David Fincher, you think Social Network's 2 hours long. It feels like 30 minutes flies by. Girl Trying Out 2 was 2.5 hours long. I didn't check my phone once. Completely gripped by it. He's a master of pacing, and like his movies are always shot like they're a trailer because it's always quick, smooth shots that keeps the flow going.
Yeah,
this movie doesn't have that ever. Like shots are slower, and it doesn't help that again. Like none of the characters except for Mank are relatable in any way. I was constantly wondering where the plot was going. And it, like I said, it took me two nights to finish the movie. That's not good on this movie's credibility. It's 2 hours 13 minutes. I mean, it's doable. watch a movie that length in one night easily, but I couldn't for this one. I saw 45 minutes was left, and I was like, can't, gotta wait.
Yeah, I go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like. It's also a shame. So there's some like, again, we've been dogging on this movie a lot, and there are some like rewarding aspects of this movie. But when I ended this movie, and before we started recording, I asked you about the budget of this movie, and it's reported from like $20 to $30 million. And this is where I'm happy the movie exists, in a sense that we are seeing the loss of the mid-budget movies like this that cost $20 to $40 million to make. If this movie is put in theaters, this thing bombs. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind, because I don't feel like this appeals to a large audience. And
well, I mean, if it's a Fincher movie.
The thing is, though, it is a Fincher movie, and Fincher does have.
During award season, I feel like it probably would have done okay.
But also, like, the girl with the dragon tattoo didn't make any money. Like, there's. I feel like this movie is made for movie fans, and while that might seem like, kind of like,
water's wet.
Yeah, water's wet kind of stuff, and like banal, but it truly is. It's a certain type of movie fans that are interested in movies before 1960s, and it's a weird kind of avenue, because again, not having a mass appeal is not a detractor of this movie in any regard, but this movie bombs if it is put into theaters, and then we lose again. I want to see more of these types of movies, regardless of the fact that I didn't like it. I want this movie to be here. It was ranked like number 10 on like popular things in Netflix when I went to go click on it, and that means people are watching it, and that's good. I want this to make money, so then David Fincher can make more movies. I want another movie after this now, David Fincher. I don't want to.
Yeah, don't wait 6 years for me to be disappointed.
Don't make me wait until 2026 to get the sequel to Mank, basically.
I read somewhere
it's a Mank the game crossover.
Oh, yay!
The game is the one movie I've ever fallen asleep to.
Are you serious?
Wow.
I kind of like the game.
So boring.
Oh my god.
So just talking about like mid-tier budget films, and I guess the reason why this film was made because of Netflix. I mean, they were the ones who bankrolled it. One of the terms of the agreement with Netflix that Fincher had to be obliged to was to shoot on digital. I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure he wanted to shoot on film. I mean, this is a film about the 1940s.
Yeah.
If you really want to get that grainy look, you want to shoot it on film.
Yeah.
So I think he had to compromise to make it shoot it on digital. Also, Fincher was going to do this film after the game. He was originally planning to do it after the game. The reason why he didn't was because he wanted to use black and white, and none of the studios, were going to allow it.
Yeah.
And you know who's going to star in the film?
Who?
So what are some big name actors in the 90s?
Kevin Spacey.
One of them, yes, Kevin Spacey.
Oh,
is
man.
gonna be,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Tobey Maguire.
Oh my God! Because Kevin Spacey just had American Beauty. He had Usual
He did
Suspects.
Seven.
He did
Usual
Seven.
Suspects 7.
Yeah.
So Kevin Spacey, yes.
Yeah.
Oh
And then
man.
who was going to play Amanda Seyfried's role? And this actress who was supposed to be cast, she was in one of the best movies of the 90s as the lead.
Oh, Uma Thurman.
No.
Like Catherine Zeta-Jones or something like that.
No.
Who is
You
it?
guys love this film.
Oh,
The
Jodie
90s.
Foster.
Yes, Jodie Foster.
Oh,
Yes!
that would have been. Jeez,
Yes!
Tyler.
Man, I'm on fire today. This is great.
Yeah, so Jodie Foster and Kevin Spacey were going to be in Mank after the game, but it fell through. So,
Yeah. Maybe,
I mean, I feel like if David Fincher did the game and then this, he probably would never have made any other
we
movies.
would have never gotten anything else. I don't know.
we got
like,
Fight Club instead. We got Fight Club.
Yeah, so it's
listen,
worth it.
Kevin Spacey's a horrible human being. He's a good actor. Just throwing that out there. He would have probably been really good
Like
in this
Klaus
role.
Kinski.
Yeah. Is it Kaczynski or Kinski?
I don't know.
It's just he said it so
Let's
confident.
go ask Verna.
Yeah, let's go ask. We can talk to him. I don't know. Like as a '90s movie with Kevin
Vanna.
Spacey, so this movie, if it comes out in the '90s, is probably darker in tone. You have to imagine, right? Because David
I mean, it
Fincher.
depends on if he wants to follow his father's script, verbatim like he did here.
Well, but you also have to think of Well, this is also I don't want to if David Fincher, because if Jack Fincher died in 2003, that means he probably would have worked more closely with David Fincher. And you're right, there probably would have been a little more. I don't know. I think of the coalition between Aaron Sorkin and David Fincher, and what works about that is Aaron Sorkin has these wonderful kind of character moments, and you fit that with David Fincher's pulpy kind of style of directing.
And he has a refusal to allow Sorkin to have a happy schmaltzy ending.
Exactly, and it works in this perfect storm. I feel like watching The Social Network tonight, and it works.
And so it's what if Rooney Mara's character just comes in right at the end and just says that she's in love with
with
Mark
and then they
Zuckerberg
kiss, and then everyone
and
claps.
and it's happily ever after. And David Fincher's like, no.
No, he's no. He has to be depressed, and he has to be refreshed.
Yeah.
We can't have this happy.
What if Andrew Garfield and Mark Zuckerberg just get ice cream or something and they work everything out?
God damn it, man! That would.
That's how it would have ended.
Yeah, I know. That's it. If Aaron
This way.
Sorkin, they hug and they're like, "You're my
Yeah.
friend, and I've always loved you," and then that's it.
Yeah.
That's the end, and they all clap, and then you're like, "Yeah." And then the judge randomly is like, "Order, order,
Yeah,
order." Fucking bullshit endings. I fucking hate Aaron Sorkin's endings. I love his movies. Oh, God damn it. I don't know. So basically, what the point I was trying to make before we went on that tangent was, I feel like Matt just froze. We'll be right back. Matt just froze.
Oh,
Hello, Matt. Are you
Yeah,
there?
I'm here.
Okay, we're good. We're not going to pause. And I'm not going to edit that out either. You're getting guerrilla style. Basically, what I'm trying to say is...
Every
David-
podcast is guerrilla style.
That's a good point, yeah. What I'm trying to say is David Fincher in the 90s and early 2000s was this very dark, grungy kind of style of directing. Just look at Seven. Seven is the most depressing looking movie ever, but it works perfectly. I wonder if having that movie made in the 90s, where David Fincher is at the apex of depression in his movies, we would have been a more kind of grimy, kind of political movie than the more schmaltzy one we kind of almost a comedy we got this time. Is it
I'm
worth
just thinking of an Aaron Sorkin ending to my Social Network right now.
They bring in a judge to rule. They're like, all right, for a settlement of that, and then
And then Michael
The only
Fassbender comes
verdict we
out.
need is friendship.
Michael Fassbender comes out as Steve Jobs. He's like, I'm gonna put music in your pocket.
And he just starts yelling, and then everyone starts yelling, and it's nonsense. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt froze again. Oh no, he's back.
Great. I love it.
Yeah,
My internet's like kind of bad right now, but
I can tell.
Oh,
I'll get
really?
through it.
So,
Yeah.
real quick, we've been dogging on this movie a lot. Matt, what did you like about this movie?
I mean, look, the directing is good. It's just not at Fincher's level of, like expertise. And like the performances are good, even though none of the characters are really that interesting. And like they do a good job of like having like a Citizen Kane style of filmmaking to it. And like the sets are cool. Like that's cool. Like it's very one dimensional likes for me.
Yep.
It doesn't like I've been saying, it doesn't reach that third dimension that Fincher is known for.
Mark, what did you like?
I liked Gary Oldman as Mank. I thought he gave a great performance. One thing I liked about this film is that you can there's this oppressive atmosphere of, Orson Welles throughout the entirety of the film. I don't know if you guys felt it. It was like, I felt like I was just like waiting for Orson to show back up again.
Yeah, he's like, because the guy who plays Orson's really good.
Yeah.
You think it's gonna be more like their relationship?
No.
Well, I didn't know much of the history, so I was expecting that. But apparently, they went off and then they did their things, and then they came back and they're like, okay, here's the script. But I was just sort of like waiting for the next Orson scene because I love Orson Welles is like the coolest voice ever, and the guy who played him in this film, I can't remember his name, but he did a great job. And I was ready for like a cool scene with Orson.
Yeah, you don't get that.
Yeah, and what else I like? I like the politics. I was caught off guard.
Tom Burke plays Orson Welles. He's in Only God Forgives, Matt.
Wow.
That was very enthusiastic.
This movie gets an A now.
Sorry, Mark, keep going.
I really enjoyed the politics, the Upton Sinclair, the sort of like the propaganda movies aspects of it. I really enjoyed that. Caught off guard, loved it.
Yeah, I didn't like much of this movie. Anytime there was like this like nice political conversation, this might tie into like our Hallmark scenes, but that when they're having where they're talking about kind of like communism versus socialism, and they're like talking about Hitler being like this like crazy person and stuff like that, and they're all like kind of like bickering about that, and there's this like weird political aspect of it. I was like, that stuff I'm into. That stuff I was like, this is really cool to get like that insight into politics at the time. But then anytime they went into the actual like creation of Citizen Kane or like Herman Mankiewicz as a character, I guess it just isn't that interesting to me. So I found like the Upton Sinclair politics to be like, this is kind of cool. Like I kind of like dig this like how MGN would make these like snuff films about Upton Sinclair, basically so he doesn't get elected. I'm like, that's a really interesting avenue to go down. And then you're right, Matt. Then there's just this guy shooting himself, and you're like, oh, what? Like, what's happening? Or it's like, it's just like, I don't know. It's basically a movie that is not my avenue of what I enjoy in movies. And it never like got there, which is the biggest part. Gary Oldman's good. The score occasionally is pretty decent, and I like the way the sound is presented and the movie looks. Other than that, I think this movie falls very flat in like every regard, and I probably won't watch it again anytime soon unless I'm doing like a big David Fincher rewatch, and I'll like begrudgingly click the button and sit and be angry watching it.
Do you want to get into Hallmark scenes?
Let's do it.
If there is any?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
I have. Maybe I have one.
Do you have a black hat scene?
It's the movie's just a Mark Steely time moment for me.
Yeah.
Like honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
I mean, I'd say for
so...
Hallmark scenes, I'd say I liked it when he was any scene where he's like stuck inside drinking and writing. I don't know if this is about me. But like I wanted more about the process, like his writing process and stuff like that. I feel like Jack Fincher does. I mean, was he a screenwriter before he
I can take a look. I can find that.
But like, I feel like he was maybe like unaware of like the process of screenwriting.
Only movie he wrote.
What?
Only movie
he
wrote.
That's the only. Okay, so I guess he was just unaware of like the process of screenwriting. So he was just like he just was apprehensive about like going into like something that he didn't know much about. But like I just wanted more of like what influences were impacting Citizen Kane, how like how the pressure of like having a deadline was affecting him, things like that. And like
Yeah.
when it touches on that, it's good, but that's what I wanted more of. And so when it's there, those are my marks. Those are my hallmark scenes.
Mark, go crazy.
Let's see. The Don Quixote scene where Gary Oldman's like, confronting William Randolph Hearst in front of everybody.
Yep.
And he's like, "You're like Don Quixote." And yeah, I read Don Quixote this year. That's why I like that scene. If I didn't read Don Quixote, I'd be like, what is this about?
I know what that is basically what you know right now.
Yeah. Speaking of that scene.
No one, he was in a room by himself going, I know that.
I'm like looking around, I'm like, do you guys see that? I know what that is.
He's pointing to
just
your
like
bookshelf.
That was
That's
like when I
right,
was
bookshelf. I am very smart.
That's when I was like watching Old Boy, and he's like near that conversation on the computer, and he's like, "I'm the County Monte Cristo," and I was like, "I know what that is."
Bookshelf. Look.
I ran to my bookshelf. I'm like,
Fresh.
So David Fincher's a psychopath. Do you want to know why? He made this is according to Charles Dance. He made Gary Oldman do that scene 100 times. This
He's
is
like a
like
psychopath
Kubrick levels.
in every movie.
He does that.
Yeah.
He basically like broke Jake Gyllenhaal in Zodiac is pretty well known.
And according to Amanda Seyfried, one of her scenes took over a week and 200 takes to shoot.
Good for
He is a maniac.
It's so funny that he's so intricate in his filmmaking here because like the script feels so like unpampered.
Yeah.
It just feels like it was written on like a first, second draft and then was shot to film. But it's just funny to see like he put so much time in the filmmaking, but like the script just doesn't really reflect that.
Yeah,
It's because he was loyal to his dad. That's my theory.
David Fincher clearly can get good performances out of actors. Like, that's no doubt. Like, his entire process is trying to break the actor down so it doesn't feel like acting, and they're just insane. Like, again, Jake Gyllenhaal's pretty on record. That opening scene of in Social Network where Rooney Mara and Jesse Eisenberg are going back and forth, Aaron Sorkin basically, like, told David Fincher how long he thought the scene should be, and then they would time it, and every time they go faster, 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 and they had to record it a bunch to get it as fast as possible. That's why that movie's like so quick. David Fincher's insane, and it pays off in a lot of other movies. I've seen everything except for Panic Room, and I like everything I've seen except for Mank. And in here,
You seen Alien 3?
I have seen Alien 3. I don't consider.
You like
do you
Alien 3?
consider Alien 3 a David Fincher movie? He's been so like vocal about how it almost like.
You like the game?
I don't mind the game.
Yeah.
It's not anywhere near as unenjoyable as Mank was for me. And again, I just haven't seen Panic Room. Curious Case of Benjamin Button is probably like, it's fine, but it's one of those things like David Fincher's movies always have this wonderfully paced energy about them. And that's when he usually works in tandem with the screenwriter to create this. But you're right, Mark. That's probably a good theory where the script was written so long ago and by his father that he probably wanted to keep true to the essence of what was written, and he didn't change much. And the fault of that is he didn't adapt his wonderful filmmaking style of this manic natural energy, I should say.
Yeah.
To create this more lively movie. I guess for favorite scenes, I like the politics stuff. The outburst scene at the end where William Hearst he's yelling at is well acted, but I didn't have any emotional connection to it. So I guess that one first politic conversation about communism and socialism, things like that, is interesting.
Yeah, I enjoy that scene as well. And also I like that scene where Mank and Mank's brother are with Louis B. Mayer, who is like William Randolph Hearst's sideman, when they're like walking between studios.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, people feel movies here, and then down here. Yeah, that scene I really liked. Yeah, that was good. And yeah. And then also, Bill Nye was Upton Sinclair in this film. Did you guys see that?
Was he?
No.
Bill Nye the Science Guy was with that brief shot of Upton Sinclair. I was like,
what?
I know who that is.
Bookshelf.
Bookshelf, where are you? I'm scared.
Bill Nye is Upton Sinclair. Look at that. Look at that go. Wow. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Cool, mate. Doesn't make the movie any better,
Yeah,
though.
No, it's by default in it now.
I'm pretty sure Mark, what's your Mark sleepy time moment? Do you have anything you didn't like, or because I'm with Matt on this one. Like the entire movie, I just was
like too ambivalent to really have like a black hat moment.
Yeah,
the whole movie is just kind of like a sleepy time moment.
It's not overall. There are no like egregiously bad scenes to have a black hat moment, basically.
Sleepy time. I'd say the first 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. I was like, wow, for some reason, I'm just not vibing with this. And then I started vibing with it. There was good vibes.
Would you then enjoy those first 20, 30 minutes on a rewatch then, probably? Knowing what's to come and knowing how the movie plays out?
I think I will, now that I have a little bit of context as to what all that meant, because I didn't know anything. I was like, what is going on here? Why are we in the desert, and why does Mank have a broken leg?
Good to know.
So, yeah.
All right, let's do it. Grades. We grade stuff on an A, B, C, D, F scale. No plus or minuses. Because fuck you, that's why. What was I going to say? Mark, you clearly are the highest in this movie. What are you going to give 2020's Mank?
This is going to seem a little high for me. I don't want to go any lower than this, but I don't want to go any higher, but it's a B.
I expected.
I feel like it's a low B. I feel like I could justify a C, but I feel like on a rewatch I might like this a lot more. And I wouldn't recommend this to like people who aren't really like, they're just like into movies casually. If you're like a cinephile or whatever, watch it. I would not recommend this to like my family to watch. You know, it's a very not a
like if your friends like, oh, like you're a movie guy, like what movie do you recommend you watch this year? You're not gonna like Mank.
Even if also, like, you didn't really even need to see Citizen Kane to watch
I
this.
know.
No, you
That's
didn't
so
at all.
disappointing.
Yeah, I know.
So if people seen Citizen Kane, I would recommend it, but it's not like a prerequisite.
It's cool to know who Orson Welles is, I guess. It's just like one of those things, like, it gives you an excuse to watch arguably what's regarded as the best movie ever made, or the most classic movie ever made. I don't necessarily agree with that opinion, but, you know, yeah, you're right. It doesn't add anything to this movie. You just go, Orson Welles is kind of a dick. That's it.
Yeah.
Matt, what are you going to give Mank 2020?
Like a very, like the lowest C possible.
Damn.
I just don't have it in my heart to give a Fincher movie a D, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's like a lot of good stuff in this movie that are unfortunately just like looked over because the script is so mediocre. So yeah, it's a C, like a very low C. I could rewatch this maybe and like it more. Like I'm open to that, but as it stands right now, I have no interest in rewatching it.
I clearly.
It's been 6 years since the David Fincher movie.
And the thing is, like, he's also saying like there's probably not going to be any more Mindhunter, which is a shame because Mindhunter is really great.
Kind of happen like after season 2, they should just like let it die.
Really? You weren't a big fan of season 2? I thought season 2
you weren't a
was
big fan of season 2 either.
I thought it was solid. I didn't think it's as good as season 1, but it's not like anywhere.
He like roasted the whole plot with the older detective.
I don't remember that. I gotta rewatch Mindhunter. Okay. Well, Matt, you said you don't have the heart to give a David Fincher movie a D. Well, I do. Fuck you, Mank is. I'm gonna give it a D. I've again not my type of movie, but also I just think in a purely like. I just don't think a lot about this movie works. I think it's very dull. I don't think the nonlinear storytelling adds anything to it, and I don't think a lot of the characters are well developed enough to warrant the kind of what the movie perceives to be like an emotional payoff at the end. I think there's large stretches of this where it's a clash between a love letter to old Hollywood and the creation of Citizen Kane, a political intrigue and the influence over Hollywood, and then what? Like this like character study. It doesn't really none of it's well developed enough to actually warrant much of a reward for this. I don't like this movie. Like it really hurts to say that. David Fincher's just the best. It really sucks to say that. I don't like Mank. Mank's gonna get a D. D for David for me.
I can't believe we all just gave these scores. Like if you told me like we go like you're gonna give a B, C, and D to Mank, I'd be like, what the fuck you talking about?
Yeah.
It's about Citizen Kane as David Fincher and Orson Welles. Or Gary Oldman or whatever.
God damn it. All right. Well, that was our Mank review, and now we're gonna get into our what we've been watching section. We're basically just touch on the stuff we've been watching, reading, playing for the past week. Mark, you usually have the least amount of stuff. What do you got?
I watched Citizen Kane again.
Yep.
I watched it for the first time earlier this year, right when I was getting into movies, like around January. And I was like, okay, now that I'm into movies now, I need to go start from the beginning and just see like that's the best movie ever. Obviously, every list is going to tell you Citizen Kane. So I watched Citizen Kane. And I was like, okay, that was pretty good, but like, what's the big fucking deal?
Yep.
And then I watched it again this week, and between me watching it the first time and me watching it this week, I've seen about 170, mostly classic films. So I now have a little bit of a palette for these things, and yeah, I totally get why this is like one of the best movies ever made. Like, it totally blew me away the second time around. Totally different experience, way more invested.
'Cause you're more into politics now too, so
Yeah.
that probably helps. as
Also,
well.
yeah, more into politics. I like what it touches on, and also like Orson Welles. It's just there's no way to put it other than the fact that he's a genius. I mean, like I think I've said this before, but like he opened Pandora's box with filmmaking. I mean,
Wasn't
I
this
think
the first movie to show a roof, like a ceiling in a movie? Wasn't that kind of like a
yes,
big thing? Yeah.
yeah. There's so many. I think I've seen a few interviews where like interviewers are like, where did you get the ideas for Citizen Kane, or like how did you choose the camera movements, and like why didn't you stick to like the old rules? And he's like, ignorance, sheer ignorance. There's no confidence to equal it. He says the only I thought you could do it with a camera whatever the eye could do, and this is mainly because he had just this insane contract where nobody from the studio was allowed on set, and he could do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Yeah.
And so him and Greg Toland, who shot the film, they just was like, let's make this bitch. So yeah, I mean, there's so many, a whole multitude of amazing things about that film that I could not even possibly cover in a little speech that I'm giving right now. Anyway, watch that. I watched Ikiru, directed by Akira Kurosawa. It came out in 1952, right before he started directing, the very famous samurai films like Yojimbo, Rashomon. Maybe Rashomon came before Ikiru. I still have to watch that. I know you've seen it, Matt.
Yeah, I've never felt more dumb in my life.
Was it like a Persona moment?
Yeah, very much like Persona.
Yeah.
It's not as I don't even know. Like it's like abstract in a different way. But
Yeah.
I was watching this movie and I'm like, I am stupid. I do not understand anything that's going on.
Yeah. I gotta watch
I think
that.
I should watch it though because it'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah. So on the topic of Ikiru, I watched it because it's sort of been on my watch list. Like when I first got into films, I made this whole list of movies that I needed to watch, and like Akira was up there, and I never really got it, sat down to watch it. It's a long film. It's about 2 hours and 23 minutes. This movie is an absolute utter masterpiece. I have no other way of describing it. Roger Ebert. The only reason I watch it because Roger Ebert says it's one of the greatest movies ever made, and in his review he says, "I believe that this is one of the few films that can actually change your life," and I completely agree with this. This film is life changing. I'm serious. It's like
So this movie like where like the old man is like stuck in an office his whole life and then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It is so powerful. There's several scenes that are just incredible. You will cry. You will probably cry. I don't want to hype it up too much. I mean, I just said it's a masterpiece, one of the greatest films ever made. So I don't really know what else I can say to hype it up even more.
It will literally change your life. I don't want to hype it up too much though.
Yeah.
But I
kind of the bar pretty low.
But I watched it, and
the only way you can hype it up more if you said this movie was God incarnate.
I literally met God watching this movie, but I don't want to get too hyped.
It's the greatest film ever made, but it's no Black Hat.
Yeah.
Well, no film is Black Hat.
Yeah.
God damn it.
But I watched it, and when you watch a film that's just so good that you're just like in this drunk stupor for about like 15 minutes, where you're like, that was incredible. And you're just like walking around your room. Probably why I think the way I felt about this film was how
I like
you
to
felt
imagine
when you
Mark
watch.
walking around his room.
Just like walking to my bookshelf, like.
Not as good as Akira.
I think the way I felt about this film, Tyler, is how you felt after watching 12 Angry Men for the first time.
Yeah, I was
You're just like, what the fuck?
Like, this is the fucking best. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
12 Angry Men.
So that's on the Criterion Channel. Highly recommend it.
Aren't most of Kurosawa's films on the Criterion Channel?
Yes.
Okay. Ooh.
A large majority of them.
I also want to throw out that Rashomon did come out, I think, 2 years before.
1950?
Yeah, it came out in 1950.
Yeah.
So,
And then I finished a book, The Master and Margarita, by Mikhail Bulgakov. It was written during the
that was impressive.
1930s. In the book, there's like in the introduction to the book, it's like it shows you how to pronounce his name. It's like it looks like Mikhail, but it's Mikhail.
Did you sit there practicing like me, hey, Yale? You're like, oh no.
I will not answer that question. It's one of the funniest books I've ever read. It's just a farce of Stalinist Russia with all these incredible parallels. And to sell you on the book a little bit, Jesus is a character, Satan is a character, Pontius Pilate is a character, and it's there is a POV chapter of Pontius Pilate sentencing Jesus to death, basically.
Interesting.
And it is told in the most interesting way possible. I mean, I feel like the depiction of Jesus in this book was like blew my socks off. It was incredible. It's a short book. It's like it's 400 pages. Is that's my definition of short? I don't know. So yeah, Master Margarita, very good book. It's very funny. Highly recommend. I also started reading Hemingway. I picked up The Sun Also Rises. I'm sort of going through a Hemingway phase right now. And the book, yeah, I have that too. It's on my bookshelf. I got it off Thrift Books.
Have you read it, Tyler?
I haven't got a chance to. No, I've been pretty busy.
Really?
Yeah, really. Yeah,
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
I went fucking.
I was like, I've been pretty busy. That's why I haven't read it, and not because I have 300 other books on that bookshelf that I haven't read.
Just don't look at any of these. Just shut up.
So yeah, I started reading The Sun Also Rises, and then I plan on reading A Farewell to Arms and For Whom the Bell Tolls. But A Sun Also Rises. Matt, have you read any Hemingway?
No, I may have read some poems. But
what the fuck are you doing? These books are your thing, man.
I'll have to borrow a book maybe next time we meet.
The Sun Also Rises follows a young writer in Paris in the 1920s. I mean, come on, man. Europe.
I'm gonna borrow this
writers.
book at some point because I want to read it really badly now.
And then another book. It's not a fictional book. It's sort of like a memoir that Hemingway wrote in his later years in the 50s. It's called A Movable Feast, and it's all about him in Paris in the 20s with like F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's like A Midnight in Paris, the book.
Matt, you're a fraud. You're a fraud, Matt.
I know. I have to borrow these books now.
And he talks about his writing process in that, and like how he went, like him sitting in cafes in Paris, observing people writing stuff down, editing. I mean. This is like, Matt, you will bust a nut when reading these books.
This sounds like everything I wanted Mank to be.
Yeah, so get on Hemingway. After you finish F. Scott Fitzgerald, get on Hemingway.
Literally and figuratively. Drag up his corpse.
Yeah.
And read The Old Man and the Sea, too, if you haven't read that, because that won him the Nobel Prize.
I gotta read some Hemingway. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, read fucking Hemingway. Let's do a Hemingway podcast.
Oh, Jesus.
Because his books, The Sun Also Rises, is just it's so good. I mean, his prose is revolutionary. It's just the terse, abrupt prose. He changed. That's why he won the Nobel Prize. I mean, every writer post Hemingway has been influenced him in some way, shape, or form. So
I haven't read his short, like abrupt, like writing style is really great for short stories, and I've read a bunch of his stuff. How does it translate to a book?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I tried to start A Farewell to Arms in this past summer, and I read about 20 pages, and I just was like, I wasn't feeling it. So I left Hemingway for a bit, and I came back to A Sun Also Rises this week, and I started for the first time. And he wrote A Sun Also Rises in 1926, so he was 27 at the time. A Farewell to Arms is in 1929, so a few years later. So his prose isn't exactly developed yet to what it legendarily is. But The Sun Also Rises is very readable, and it's Matt. This is Matt written all over it. I'm just like I'm
I'm
reading this.
super
I'm like,
excited to read this now.
I'm like,
I
why the fuck?
I might just buy it because I probably won't want to keep it too. So I might just go on Amazon and buy it because
Oh yeah.
how long is the book?
Oh, it's short. It's like 200 pages.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's like, whoa.
Mac,
All
get
right.
on this shit, man.
Yeah, I want to read this now. I
Yeah.
really want to read this.
All right.
So that's what I did.
Is that all right,
Yeah.
Matt? What have you done? What have you
Okay,
watched?
so I watched Citizen Kane for the first time. It's like say the movie is ahead of its time is like the biggest understatement of the world. Just from like even from an editing and directing standpoint, like there's so many like unique shots. It's just so intricate, and I can't
Yeah.
really say anything that the movie hasn't said before. I love the quote. "He provide the photographs. I'll provide the war." Is like the best line in the whole movie. The one big problem I had with it is the exposition at the beginning. It's so unnecessary. I literally thought that the copy on HBO Max was like bunk and like they didn't order the movie correctly. I was
Yeah.
like, why is this not? Why are they telling me all this right now? Like you don't really the audience itself. The audience is already invested in what Rosebud is. We don't need a side plot where the journalist is investigating what Rosebud is. You can tell it in a more natural way. Other than that, this movie is utterly phenomenal, and despite having like the highest of expectations for the movie, it completely lived up and surpassed in many ways.
Well, just to point out about the exposition scene, which is fair
Yeah.
criticism. It's a lot of exposition. The way that it was told was revolutionary through the newspapers and just through the structure of it all. Matt is frozen.
Keep going.
Oh
He's
no,
back.
he's like yeah.
Are you
Oh
guys
no,
there?
he's frozen.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. You're back.
You're saying the point. You see, you left on a cliffhanger. You're like the point about, and then you just then I like cut out.
The way that the exposition was told was revolutionary at the time. The way it was told through the newspaper,
Yeah.
on the table, and the structure of it all. That was a kind of a big deal at the time because like filmmakers were like, holy shit, this is a cool way of telling exposition. Also, kind of ties in thematically with the film, like how can you describe a man's life in one word? With the whole.
I mean, I
Rosebud thing.
understand parts of it, but I just
Yeah.
like, didn't
Yeah,
click
that's
for me.
that's fine. You
Yeah.
just don't like it.
But I mean, it's a small thing I didn't like in a movie that I love. So
Yeah.
it is what
Yeah.
it is. I also watched Rewatched Hostiles, 2017 Western with Christian Bale, and we're gonna eventually do a Western video. Probably not this weekend because Cyberpunk's coming out, and I'm not gonna watch, all those movies. But this movie's really good. Like I kind of wish people talked about it more. Talks a lot about like factionalism, and it really gives you like an in-depth look of like what war between like U.S. officers and Native Americans would look like, and like the hostile that's between them. We watched this movie a couple of years ago in theaters, Tyler.
Yeah.
And
It's really great.
Definitely lived up to like my expectations again, and I think it's one of the more like underrated movies of the 2010s. I highly recommend that.
Nothing's better than a movie. Not a spoiler. The first 5 minutes is a family being like brutally murdered.
Yeah, this movie is really brutal, but I think it's ultimately serves a purpose at the end.
It's well done, I should say.
Yeah, it's realistically brutal, and it's it's there are like really good messages about it's very cliche, but like messages about like overcoming differences and stuff. But I feel like with the subject matter of like real war just makes like the overcoming of like the racism and biases more like satisfying.
It's a movie that doesn't do anything new, but it does the standards very, very well.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And Christian Bale is great. He's great in this movie. I watched. I have a soft spot for Bruce Willis movies in the 2010s where he looks like he doesn't care. So I watched Hard Kill that came out this year on Netflix, and it's very disappointing. It's really bad, and Bruce Willis isn't in the movie enough. I don't recommend it. He plays a CEO, and like when he's in it, it's brilliant because he's like, my daughter, I love you so much, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you. He's so checked out, and I just love it. But there's too many like generic like wannabe like supermodel actors like shooting guns or pretending like they're like Marines or whatever, and just doesn't fit at all. And it's like comical and it's terrible. I don't recommend it.
Do you know why Bruce Willis does that? Is because he demands, I think it's like $1 million per day for shoot. So they basically get him all done in like one day, and he's in one location. He doesn't do anything. So ruined it for you.
Good job, Bruce. I watched Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Rewatched it. It's Coen Brothers like short film collection of westerns. There are like 3 really good ones, 1 pretty good one, and then 2 kind of mediocre ones. but the really good ones are like worth watching. And there really isn't much to say about it. Like it's supposed to be like subversive Western, and like it does a lot of good like different styles. Like there's more like gritty Westerns, like an Unforgiven. There's like kind of like 1960s Westerns where like a guy's like singing and playing guitar on a horse and stuff like that. But he's like a brutal murderer, and that's like a pretty good subversion.
First one.
What?
The first story.
Oh, you've seen Buster Scruggs, Mark?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, okay. What do you think about it?
There are some stories that I liked and some I really did not like.
Yeah.
Some that bored the hell out of me.
It's a very mixed bag, but I think like the good ones. I love the one where the old man is like mining for gold. That's like my favorite.
Oh yeah, the pocket, the gold
yeah,
pocket.
he's like, I'm coming for you, pocket, Mr. Pocket.
Yeah.
I might be old, but you're older.
Yeah.
That's
Good night, Mr. Pocket.
Yeah, that story is worth it. Just that story, the first story with Buster Scruggs himself. I like the one where they go out to Oregon Trail. I like the ending of that one. That one's a little slow at times, but like the ending is really good. And like the James Franco one where he fights the guy with the pans. It's like pan shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this good, like,
he's getting hanged, and he's like at the hanging block, and he's like, he looks at the guy next to him, he's like, first time.
Yeah.
Is that what that's from? Is that I've never?
That's what like the meme is from. Or whatever.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
It's like more like the funny side of the Coen Brothers writing, and I think it's like a decent time. And then I'll talk about this book more during what we've been our like monthly episode. But I finished The Side of Paradise of Scott Fitzgerald's first book. And kind of like what Mark is saying with like earlier Hemingway, his prose isn't there yet. It's getting there with F. Scott. Like I read Beautiful and the Damned earlier this year, and I read On Booze like midway through the year. And his prose, there's when it's great, it reaches that Beautiful and the Damned level, but there is a lot of like weird plot points that don't really go anywhere. And it's a lot of like you can tell like obviously Beautiful and Damned has a lot of F. Scott Fitzgerald's own life in it, but it's more obvious here in Side of Paradise, and just feels like he's like writing the book as his life is going, as his life is happening, and there's not a lot of like cohesion as to what's going on. But if you like F. Scott Fitzgerald, I don't want to like tell you not to read it, because when he hits those highs are great. And I'm gonna go more in depth into it for our monthly episode, but I still think it's like a quality book that if you're an F. Scott fan, you should definitely read it.
What are you gonna read from F. Scott Fitzgerald next?
I'm considering going back to read Great Gatsby, because I haven't read that since high school, but
Same.
I kind of want to read Last Tycoon as well.
This last book?
Yeah.
I don't think you ever finished that. The Love of the Last Tycoon.
Yeah, it's unfinished, but there is a published version of it. I think out of his novels, like the real novels he has, The Side of Paradise, Beautiful and the Damned, Great Gatsby, Last Tycoon, and there's one other one.
Tender as the Night.
Tender as the Night. Those are his 5 like real novels, and then so maybe I'll read Tender as the Night next when I get around to that. But I love F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm so glad I've like taken this year to read more of his literature, because Beautiful and the Damned I just bought on a whim, and I love that book so much.
Yeah,
you love
fantastic.
It too, Mark.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books of the year.
Yeah.
I just want to throw
staring at Tyler.
I just want to throw out one thing real quick. Our mustaches from Mark to me to Matt are like each a different level of like voluminous. I've been like looking at that, like it goes like Mark, and then Matt's like the alpha here in terms of a mustache.
This has been like 2 months, just to clarify.
So that honestly, like I tuned out like half of that because I was like just staring at everyone's mustache.
I open Beautiful and the Damned. It's like, where are the pictures?
Oh,
And you throw it away.
The reason why I haven't read any of this because I keep buying books and I don't open them in the bookstore, and I get home, see there are no pictures, and throw them on here and don't read them. So anyway, what did I do? This is the first time like since May where I had to go like multiple days without watching a movie. But I did watch a few. I also watched Citizen Kane. And my thoughts basically mirror Matt's almost exactly. I think the first few, I'm not a big like exposition dump fan. I always think that's kind of lazy, but you're right. Like Matt said, this is like way ahead of its time. There were just like a couple shots you're like, god damn, like where the lights coming through like a sunlight, and that's the only thing like illuminating like this very like dark atmosphere, and you're like, this is incredible. It's Citizen Kane. I mean, it's not the greatest movie of all time, but it's always
how dare you.
I'm sorry. But I feel like
cut the tape.
He can't say that. I feel like I feel like I'm glad I watched it, and that's ultimately like I'll watch it probably again sometime in my life. But yeah, it's great. Citizen Kane. Matt, I finally watched Shadow. Um, that 2018 like Chinese like action movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. it's not.
It's not good.
It's
You
not
watch the
good.
trailer and you think it's gonna be so awesome, and then
Yeah,
it's
it's
so bland and
so.
mediocre.
It's basically like a somewhat visually interesting movie with the most generic and bland narrative ever. Like it's just so like I don't even think the visuals are that great. Like to be completely honest, like there are cool stuff in it, but like I got really tired of like the muted gray, like
Yeah.
contrasting with like the dark red of blood. And I'm like, I get what you're doing here to highlight all this stuff, but cool. There's one shot that I was like in tears laughing is when they're like Beyblading down the street, where they put like the umbrellas and they're riding on the umbrellas and they just look like sharp Beyblades. I was
Yeah.
like in tears laughing so hard. But then other than that, like the narrative kind of sucks. The characters kind of suck. I've never felt like a movie that has tried to tell me that the world is big, and then it just felt like it was just like a building. Like there are a lot of times they're like, you're the king of this entire area, and then it just doesn't feel like that. The
Mm.
world building's awful. It's just whatever. It kind of just sucks. And then so I'm actually really curious about this. Real quick, I watched Boss Level. I was in like a mood for a really kind of cheesy action bad movie or whatever. And it's basically like Groundhog's Day meets Edge of Tomorrow meets a little more comedy. Frank Grillo is actually has like some charisma. Like that's the most surprising part is you see him in like Winter Soldier and you're like, you're that bad guy from movies, so you're just gonna like you fight and you get beat up and you look kind of cool. But he actually has like legitimate like talent. He's nowhere near like the schlockiness of like 80s action stars, but he can kind of carry a movie, and I was really impressed by that. It kind of sucks. Like it has its fun moments, but Mel Gibson talks about like this like prophecy for like 4 minutes, and I went on my phone and then I like tuned back in. He was still talking. I don't know. It like it doesn't really utilize its premise super well, but they try. It you have to respect it. It's from the guy who did The Gray, and it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, that's cool. This movie also has a budget of $45 million, and it looks horrendous. And I was baffled by that. So clearly, like, there's some money laundering, allegedly, probably going on.
Wow.
I watched Big Lebowski. Big Lebowski's really great. Like, it's like really, really great. I do want to point out this though, and before you guys get mad at me, the Big Lebowski is one of those movies that definitely got subject to too much hype for me. And in the sense that I really have been able to make it somehow this long in my life and this long being a movie fan, knowing literally nothing about the movie except for a few lines like the dude abides and kind of stuff like that, and that there's a rug. I knew legitimately nothing about this movie. And because of that, it has been so hyped, and I had such high expectations, like such high expectations, because it's been like praised to high heaven by you, Matt, and by
Yeah.
you, Mark. That when I watched it, I'm like, that was really, really good. But because I had set such high expectations, even though the movie's really good, it didn't meet those super high expectations. So I watched it and went, yeah, it's really good. Is that it? Like, so now if I rewatch it,
Tyler gave it 0 stars on Letterboxd.
I didn't give it a grade because I want to watch it again. Once I watch it again, then I'll
Look
be
at
able
0
to
stars
correct.
to me. What do you
Well,
think, Mark?
it's just
It looks like -1 stars,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. I gave it a bad review, so you know. So that's the Big Lebowski. It's definitely like I don't often get overhyped on movies, but that was one where I'm just like, yeah,
I
it's
think
overhyped.
I like to be honest. Like I had the same. Like when I first watched it, I watched
Yeah.
with my friend Alex, and I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, that was something.
Yep.
But I mean, every subsequent watch, like it's become like one of my favorite movies I've ever seen.
that's how I can feel because there's definitely a few points where he like drops like the thing in his like lap, and then he like screams and then like crashes into a dumpster in the cargo. I was like laughing so hard I was crying.
Is this your homework, Larry?
This is,
Is this your homework?
it's your fucking car. Yeah. It's like again.
See what happens, Larry? Man, John Goodman's just the best.
Oh, he's so great in this movie. Shut the fuck up, Donnie. Shut up. Donnie. It's just it's so great. There's like again, just over. It's just like it was too hyped for me. That's it. So yeah. That was
Hates
our.
it.
I hate it. Yeah, I hate Mank. No, I hate Mank. I do hate Mank. No, I was really like when you guys were talking, I was really focusing on that mustache bit because it really like came to fruition.
Tyler read book and was like, ooh.
I don't know what that is. What is All right. That was our Mank episode. Matt, what's our call to action? What are we doing next week?
Like, comment, subscribe, comment for your film fraud, or on YouTube and every place you can get good podcasts. We can probably listen to this on YouTube. Next week we are talking about Lady Vengeance.
Yep.
My last episode of the Parks and Walk series for now. We're wrapping up the Vengeance trilogy. I think it's on Criterion, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Tyler's nice enough to give me his Criterion pass.
All right,
so
I
can
guess I'm
watch it
giving you
for
your
free.
Criterion.
That's for this fun movie.
When did we do Old Boy? Like, when did we start this?
In the summer.
Okay, keep going. Sorry. We
So I'm
did
excited
this
to see where
at the
that.
beginning of
You
August.
told me to keep going, then you immediately cut me off.
Yes, because I found it. We watched it August 1st is when I watched it. Look at you go. Okay, keep
well,
going.
I'm so glad you cut me off for that really fascinating fact. I'm excited to see you guys think about this movie because this has more of like the old boy style. I think you guys didn't like Mr. Vengeance as much because it felt less like stylized or something like that.
Felt like a step down from Old Boy.
Yeah, I feel like this movie has that more old boy style, but it goes to some weird places. So I'm really excited to see how you guys react to this movie.
I asked Matt about dead kids, and he just laughed, and so I'm very scared. I'm very scared.
Although recent history has indicated that Tyler wants more dead kids and more suffering in his movies, so he might give this movie an A.
Wait, when did I say I wanted more dead kids?
In Mr. Vengeance, when the little kid drowns, you said you wanted the scene to last longer, you wanted her to suffer more, and then in the Cold War review, you said you wanted the suicide scene to last longer.
That's a good point. I like watching the dead people die in this movie in movies. So.
Let's watch The House That Jack Built.
No, I know what happens to that.
Lars von Trier is gonna come up on my list because that will be a fascinating.
There's a lot of Lars von Trier films on the Criterion Channel.
Oh my god!
I will actively not. I'll step away from that episode.
We're doing it.
I'm not gonna be there. You're
gonna be there.
I'm not gonna be there. You can't make me. You can't make
Tyler's so funny in the group chat. He's like, I don't know, guys. I might not be able to do the Mank review this weekend.
I thought it was. I had a
cool, yeah, whatever. And you're like, oh, all of a sudden my schedule's clear. And I can do the Mank review.
First off, how dare you? Second of all, I had an MTEL exam scheduled for Saturday morning, and I was like, I'm going to be very busy. No, and then I moved it because I was like, I am so busy, I don't have time to study. So then I moved it and was like, okay, now I'm free. So while you're making that joke at my expense, Matthew, just know that I had actual stuff going on for the first time in my life since May. And since we started doing this, I was actually busy for a week.
Tyler's like, yeah, I haven't read the old man in the sea because I've been pretty busy. I mean, look at his letterbox. It's like 2 hour movies.
It's like 45 movies a month. I have resorted on weekends.
I've been so busy.
I have been on weekends now. I watch 2 movies a night. It's so much fun.
Wow.
Yeah, that's shut up. I hate all of you. All right, that's our Mank review. That's everything. Thank you guys for watching. Yeah, let us know whose mustache is the best because I know it's mine. So, like, mine connects. Matt's got the little gap in the center, and Mark is just
I can't grow anything here.
Mark dipped his face into it or something.
Yeah, that's what I did.
All right, thank you guys for watching.
A lot of Oreos, and that's what just comes.
He licks his finger and then just spreads it for later. It's an extra snack. All right, guys, thank you guys for watching, and I got the final.